Okay, let's continue with this lecture over developmental or disorders. I think we were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder and how we really didn't see much of this until about the 60s when people started coming back from Vietnam. These guys really have some serious issues, but the problem is that they get back into their regular life, and then when everybody thinks everything's fine, about 6 months later, they start to relive these events, nightmares, flashbacks, all these things. There's been several movies made about this lately. Brothers is probably one of the good ones with the guy from Spider-Man. Something that's not quite as bad is acute stress disorder. It's like PTSD, but it happens quicker, like immediately after the event, the next couple weeks. I suffered from this. I witnessed a really horrible accident when I was right out of high school, and for weeks after that I had really bad nightmares, but eventually it went away. So it's acute stress disorder, not quite as bad as post-traumatic stress disorder, but with some counseling you can get over it. Now, the reason for these anxiety disorders, there are two schools of thought on this. Where does it come from? The psychological reason is that they think there's some kind of repressed urge. That's why you've got this fear. That's why you've got this repetitive behavior. You're repressing these dirty thoughts. May cause you to wash your hands repetitively. Maybe, you're feeling guilty, and so this guilt works its way in other ways inside your brain, and so they feel like you're holding something back, and in order to compensate for that, you do these things that you really don't want to do, but you feel like you're cleansing yourself, perhaps. The learning theorists think that these childhood experiences causes these things. Maybe something you witness as a child or see as a child. Maybe you're attacked by a dog as a little kid. You don't think much of it, but maybe that image has been pounded into your brain, and therefore as an adult you have this massive fear of dogs. Biological reasons, I think that heredity has part of it. 50% of twins have the same fears, so maybe there's something linked hereditarily to different problems. These fears could go all the way back to Adam. If you think about it, Adam didn't do too well with the snake, according to the story, so that's why most people have a fear of snakes. It's possible. Or if you look at it from the point of, if I have a fear of heights, and my brother does not have a fear of heights, and we're walking around a cliff, and there's something that's very dangerous, he doesn't have the fear, so he gets next to the edge, and he falls off. I survive. My fear survives. He doesn't. So his fear doesn't survive. So, if I've got a fear of bears and you don't have a fear of bears, and we walk up to a bear and the bear kills you, I'm running because I don't want anything to do with the bear. Mine survives. He's dead. So that survival is passed on. Think of it that way. Next type of disorder are mood disorders. Most people have mood disorders. They have changes that reflect the ups and downs of daily life. We have this all the time. Some people are in a good mood, bad mood. I'm in a good mood most of the time. But, you have your ups and you have your downs. That's just part of life. But when it doesn't match the situation, you might have a particular disorder. And there are two divisions of these. You have depression, which is feeling of helpless, hopeless, great sadness. Bipolar disorder are mood swings that go from depression and elation and back. And we're going to go into a little more detail on these things. Major depression, or sometimes it's called clinical depression, is the most common of psychological disorders. Now, I know we keep saying that about a lot of these different things, but a large reason for this is that people suffer and are never treated. They just think, oh, woe is me, but most people that have this disorder do not go seek help, and the people around them don't really necessarily recognize it. A lot of times after somebody passes, maybe they've committed suicide or something like that, and they go, I really just didn't realize that was what was wrong. But unfortunately, those things don't always get diagnosed like they're supposed to. You got to have at least 5 of 9 symptoms to be diagnosed as major depression. Persistent depressed mood most of the day. Loss of pleasure in all or most all activities. Things that used to give you pleasure, hanging out with your family, going to a baseball game, whatever it happens to be, but now it doesn't necessarily bring you that kind of pleasure. Significant weight loss or gain. Some people eat because they're miserable. Some people can't eat because they're miserable. So it could fluctuate either way there. Sleeping more or less than usual. They could sleep the entire day away. It wouldn't bother them. Fatigue or loss of energy. They just have no gas. They just feel like, oh, I just need to lay down and forget this. Feeling of worthless or unfound guilt. Reduced ability to concentrate or make meaningful decisions. They're just not much good in any kind of stressful situation because they can't put anything together. They're that depressed. Recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. Obviously, if you've got these, then you need to seek some help, but not everybody does. And you need one of the first two, that persistent or depressed mood or loss of pleasure in all or most activities, and you have them every day for 2 weeks. So if on the test you're asked, what does it mean to be clinically depressed, you have to have 5 of 9 symptoms every day for 2 weeks. That would do it. Nearly 15% of the people with depression actually kill themselves, which is a sad thing. And like I said, a lot of people go undiagnosed and kill themselves anyway. Bipolar disorder is similar to that. It used to be called manic depression, but these periods of mania are excitement, hyperactivity, chaotic behavior. They change to depression really quickly. Something triggers it, and bam, they're down at the bottom. You might meet somebody like this early in the morning, and they're on top of the world. Afternoon, after they've eaten lunch, maybe something is triggered, some kind of chemical action, then they go back to depression. You wouldn't even hardly recognize the person. Some people are irritable rather than elated. They just get really ticked off, really upset, and so that could mask itself there. Manic people would have very high self-esteem. They think, like I said, they're on top of the world. They think they're indestructible. They might have inability to sit still or sleep restfully. They're all over the place, so they can't relax. They have pressure to keep talking and switch from topic to topic. Because they're so juiced up, they really just can't sit still or do anything. They have racing thoughts called flights or ideas. What this means is, you say, well, what do you say we go to the mall? Oh, and if we're at the mall, let's do this. Oh, and if we see that person, then we got to do this. And one thought leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. It just takes flight and ends up with something completely different than where you started that initial thought. They have a lot of difficulty concentrating. Obviously, they can't sit still. They can't focus. In severe cases, they may even have hallucinations, but that's really severe. It doesn't always happen like that. Reason for these moods disorder. Psychoanalytic reasoning is that the child may have suffered a loss of an object or person in childhood, and the anger person is turned inward. Perhaps dad left at a young age, and so they blame themselves for that. It's never the kid's fault. But sometimes little kids just don't understand that. Mom and dad separated because of me. And sometimes these kids take that on, and then they start to take that guilt on in an adult way, and it just stays with them year after year after year. Learning theorists suggest that a learned sense of helplessness would lead to depression. Couldn't get help past events, so how can you change things that's going to happen in the future? It's just just like we talked about learning a couple chapters ago. You learn that this has happened once. Well, I can't help it. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. So it's just this learned sense of helplessness, which people just can't get over. The cognitive theorists, remember cognitive has to deal with brain, suggest that depressed people are prone to depression because of the way they explain events, either an internal, external, stable, unstable, or global or specific. In other words, something bad happens. Let's say not even that bad. I lose a football game. Okay, well, if you blame it on yourself, that's one thing. If you blame it on external factors, that's something else. If you say this is just the way things are done, you can't win them all, That's one way to look at it. That's probably the better way to look at it. But if you blame yourself for little things, um, like say you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you know, rather than look at the fact that well, it just wasn't meant to be. You're going one place, she's going another place, or something like that. That's one way to look at it. But if you take all that guilt inside, oh, I'm so stupid, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this. Um, those people have a higher chance of having a mood disorder than the people who say, well, it happens. People just aren't destined to be together. So that's what all those different things are. Is it specific or is it general? Others believe that depressed people have a negative self-concept, which, it's kind of the opposite of self-esteem. They have a very negative self-concept. Biologically, it's been linked to specific neurotransmitters. If they don't have these specific neurotransmitters that pick them up, then they have a higher chance of having a mood disorder. So a lot of different reasons. We really don't know specifically why there are mood disorders, but there definitely are. And they've done some research that way, but we haven't quite figured it all out yet. All right, dissociation, separation from conscious thought, third type of disorder. Everybody daydreams. We all do it. Being involved in a book that you don't hear your name. I get like that when I'm watching a movie. My wife will call my name, and I'm totally focused on what I'm doing. So I don't hear my name. I'm just daydreaming. It's not a big deal. Everybody does it. If it occurs as a way to avoid a stressful situation, then it's a psychological disorder. When I'm supposed to have my stuff together and supposed to be doing things, maybe let's say something bad happens, and I just check out. Like let's say, for example, there was a gunshot in the middle of the hallway. People would run. Everybody would have a different reaction to that. Some people would scream. Some people would hide. Some people would maybe even go after or go out to see where the gunman was. Others would just go into almost a shock-like state where you have to wake them up and go, hey, come on, we got to get together. That's dissociation. You check out and go somewhere else. There's a couple different types. You have dissociative amnesia, which is a sudden loss of memory, usually following a traumatic event. It happens quite often. It's your brain's way of protecting itself. Let's say you deal with you have a bad car wreck, You have a bad car wreck, and the next day you can't tell me what happened that day. Or a week later you're like, man, I really don't remember what happened. All I remember is getting up that morning, and then the next thing is after the wreck. It's because your brain, to protect itself, has kind of blocked out all those memories. It doesn't know the good from the bad, so it's going to take just that whole time period and hold it back. And you can't remember anything that happened that day. You can't remember where you went for lunch, can't remember any of those kind of things because your brain has blocked that off, so you don't have to live through that trauma of that event anymore. It might wipe out all memory of the event or all prior experiences. In some rare cases, people have come, lived through like a plane crash or something, and they don't know who the person is, they don't know where they came from, they don't remember anything about themselves, their name or anything. It might last a few hours, or it could last for years in some cases. It is not caused by a blow to the head. Yes, you can have amnesia that way, but that's not dissociative amnesia. Dissociative fugue is similar to amnesia. It involves relocation and a new identity. With the fugue, let's say you're going along, something happens, you witness an event, and you go into fantasy land. You go into something that you wanted to do years ago. People will wake up and they assume an identity that they had tucked away in their brain, and they end up moving out of state and doing something completely different. It's very rare. You hear it. It's the kind of stuff that you see on daytime TV, in the soap operas. Dissociative identity disorder is even more of that. It's formerly called multiple personality disorder. It's the existence of two or more personalities in the same person. Very rare, but these things are often very different extremes, and they usually caused by severe child abuse. We'll talk more about this when we continue in the next lecture.